Penguin Random House Audio presents The Impossible Climb, Alex Honnold, El Capitan, and the Climbing Life, by Mark Synnott. Read for you by Mark Deakins. For Tommy, Lilla, Matt, Will, and Hampton. Prologue. The ditch, as climbers sometimes call Yosemite Valley, typically remains summer hot well into September, but a rogue cold front had blown in overnight. A wan sun slouched low to the east, barely discernible through a thick, overcast sky. Tiny droplets of water saturated the air. Alex wondered, is the rock getting slippery? The friction still felt okay, probably because the stiff breeze was drying the stone as quickly as the moisture-laden air was wetting it. But the rock had absorbed the raw, gray cold, and that was starting to bother his feet. His toes were a little numb, and the size 42 shoes felt sloppy on the glacier-polished granite. He wished he'd worn the 41s. Years earlier, when he first contemplated free-soloing El Capitan, Alex had made a list of all the crux sections on Freerider, the parts that would require careful study and extensive rehearsal. The traverse to Round Table Ledge, the Enduro Corner, the boulder problem, the downclimb into the monster, and the slab section on pitch 6, 600 feet off the deck, which he now confronted. Of all the various cruxes on the 3,000-foot-high route, this one haunted him most, and for a simple reason. It's a friction climb that is entirely devoid of grips on which to pull or stand. Like walking up glass, thought Alex. He couldn't help thinking about the fact that it had spit him off before. It's only rated 511, which, while still expert-level climbing, is 3 grades below Alex's maximum of 514. But unlike the overhanging limestone roots in Morocco that Alex could bully into submission by cracking his knuckles on the positively shaped holds, the crux here required trusting everything to a type of foothold called a smear. As the name implies, a smear involves pasting the sticky rubber shoe sole against the rock. Whether the shoe sticks depends on many factors, including, critically, the angle at which it presses the rock. The best angle is found by canting one's body out away from the wall as far as possible without toppling over backward. This weights the foot more perpendicular to the stone, generating the most friction available. The more a climber can relax, the better a smear feels. Conversely, a tense or timid climber instinctively leans in toward the rock, questing for a non-existent purchase with the hands. To rely solely on such a delicate balance between the necessary adhesion and teetering past the tipping point in a high-consequence situation is perhaps the most dreaded move a rock climber can encounter. Alex had climbed this section of El Cap 20 times and fallen once on this move. A guy who keeps numerical records of every climb he has done since high school, he had noted to himself in recent days that 5% of his attempts at this move had gone awry. And those were low-consequence situations. He had worn a rope clipped to a bolt 2 feet below his waist. He had obsessed about free-soloing El Capitan for 9 years, nearly a third of his life. By now, he had analyzed every possible angle. Some things are so cool they're worth risking it all, he had told me in Morocco. This was the last big free solo on his list, and if he could pull it off, perhaps he might start winding things down, maybe get married, start a family, spend more time working on his foundation. He loved life and had no intention of dying young, going out in a blaze of glory. And so 1 in 20 wasn't going to cut it. He needed to get this move, along with the other crux sections, as close to 100% as possible. But Alex wasn't thinking any of this. He had trained himself not to let his mind wander when he was on the rock. He was famous, after all, for his ability to put fear in a box and set it on an out-of-the-way shelf in the back of his mind. The life questions, the analyses, he saved that stuff for when he was hanging out in his van, hiking, or riding his bike. At that moment, He was just having fun and not thinking about anything except climbing and climbing well. Details, whether they rose to the surface of his mind or not, did factor into the climbing equation he was in the midst of solving. How he wasn't sure how his right foot felt because his big toe was slightly numb, or how the callus on the tip of his left index finger seemed glassy on the cold rock, or that his peripheral vision, key for picking up all the subtle ripples and depressions in the rock, diminished when he had his hood up, as he did now. Back in the 1960s, when this section of El Cap was pioneered, the first ascensionist drilled a 1/4-inch hole in the rock here, hammered in an expansion bolt, clipped an étrier to it, and stood up in this stirrup to reach past the blankness. That bolt, since replaced with a much beefier 3/8-inch stainless steel version, was still right here, next to Alex's ankle. Balancing on his left foot, Alex lifted his right leg high and squeegeed his toe onto the blank 75-degree angle rock. Trusting more than feeling the friction, he rocked the full weight of his body onto this smear. It held, but only for a second. Oftentimes, a foot slip can be checked by bearing down on the handholds, but Alex's palms were laid flat against the smooth, holdless slab. Nothing counteracted the pitiless pull of gravity. Alex was weightless and picking up speed when the heel of his right foot hit a bulge in the wall, snapping his ankle over hard. But before he could register any pain, the rope tied to his harness came taut and he skidded to a stop. It could have been a short, routine fall like the other time he'd slipped, but Alex had chosen not to clip to the bolt protecting the crux because he wanted to feel out and perhaps ease into being ropeless on this section of Freerider. He dangled some 30 feet below where he had come off. "Ow, ow," whimpered Sonny, who was now only 10 feet down and to the right of Alex. While he was in the air, Sonny had tried to reel in a handful of rope to shorten the fall. She was pulling with her left arm, her right down by her hip. When Alex's 160 pounds hit the end of the rope, the force of the fall pulled Sonny up violently, snapping her against the tether that connected her to the anchor and slamming her left arm against the cold granite. "Are you okay?" Alex asked his girlfriend. "I'm okay, it's just a bruise," she called up, her breaths coming fast and ragged. "Are you?" "I think I'm okay, but my ankle really hurts." Alex looked down and saw his right ankle swelling. Bright red blood was splotched across the wall around him. He pressed his fingers into his knee. It felt spongy and full of fluid, like something had burst inside of it. "I'm going to try to weight it," he said. He put down his foot on a small shelf and tried to step up. Lightning bolts of pain shot up his leg. "Okay, that feels really bad, sickeningly bad." Alex's first foray onto Freerider for the season could have been worse. Had this been his free solo attempt, he'd be dead at the base of the wall. Part 1. Youth. Chapter 1. The Han is going to solo El Cap. Jimmy Chin took a deep breath, puffed out his cheeks, and exhaled slowly. "There's something I need to tell you," he whispered. "Can you keep a secret?" We stood chest to chest in the Jackson Hole aerial tramway, crammed in with about 100 other ruddy-faced skiers. It was February 2016, and I was in the Tetons with 2 of my sons, ages 17 and 14, for their February school vacation. They huddled a few feet away, ignoring me and trying to catch a glimpse of the mountain through a foggy plexiglass window. We had run into Jimmy a few minutes earlier in the line for the tram. I hadn't seen him in almost a year. "Of course," I whispered back. "What's up?" Jimmy leaned in until his face was a few inches from mine. His eyes grew wide. "The Han is going to solo El Cap this fall," he said. "What? You're messing with me, right?" "I swear." I looked around to see if anyone had overheard, but everyone was grooving to AC/DC's Back in Black, which pumped from a speaker overhead. Jimmy stared back at me, his mouth hanging open. "He told you?" I asked. Yeah.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?